Welcome to the Grief and Belief podcast, where we share stories of hope. Thank you for joining us. We hope this powerful story will help you feel God's love for you today.
Welcome to another episode of the Grief and Belief podcast. I'm David Mickelson.
And I'm Kori Andrews.
And we are so excited to have another guest with us today. And this one is pretty exciting and interesting, partially because we're dropping an episode on a new day. We usually drop on Tuesdays, and we're excited that we're dropping it today because there's some special things happening today that we are going to talk to our guest about. Kori, how do you know Amanda Wilkinson?
Yeah, I was trying to remember how we were first connected. I think it was through High Five Live. Is that right, Amanda? Maybe through Gainal Condi?
Yes, that probably is. It's been a hot minute. I feel like I've lived like 5 lifetimes since then,
Right.
But that was probably where our original connection was. And then we've had some similar experiences since then over the years where I think some further conversation happened after that.
Yeah, and I remember vividly your story that you shared on High Five Live about your son who passed away, and I remember being touched by it at that time. And I remember hearing that story before I had my own grief experience, and then as I went through my grief experience, remembering your faith, and it was powerful for me. And so thank you for being willing to share in the past and blessing my life, and then being willing to share again with our audience today. I'm super grateful and so excited for what our audience is going to learn from you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you so much for the ministry that you do to so many across the world who are navigating this road.
Now, on maybe a quick lighter note, if you start following Amanda on social media, you'll recognize that Kori and I are very dressed down, and Amanda is always dressed up. I mean, you're always ready to go, and so I just think you can tell your personality a little bit just through the picture because you're so lively and exciting, and so much passion for everything that you do. And so I think this is going to be, of course, a touching experience because of the topic that we're going to cover, but also just there's this energy and passion that exude kind of in everything that you do. And I hope everybody can feel that today.
Oh, thank you so much. That's such a compliment, and that means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, Amanda, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, whatever you want to share with our audience so they can get to know you.
So I am a sweetheart to 1, a mother to 5. My background is in global policy and interfaith relations. I've been doing that for about 27 years. I also grew up as a vocalist and as a musician. In fact, my own family had a bluegrass band, and then I was in 3 bands after that. And so music and performing was so much a part of my life. I have a fascination with architecture and design, which probably, if you see me or if you've been in my home, this is actually my kitchen right here, then this will not surprise you. But probably one of my biggest passions is people. And I love hearing people's stories. That's kind of woven into what I do with global policy and interfaith relations. And I have found that the more experiences that I have had in life, the more the lenses that those experiences have given me have helped me relate to more and more and more of humanity, and have kind of excavated this space in my soul that have helped me connect with so many people around the world who have had such different life experiences than I have.
That's so cool and amazing that you've been involved in those powerful things while also being a super mom in so many ways to your incredible kids. Could you tell us a little bit more about them?
Oh, well, I could talk about them forever, but my oldest is Emma, and she's 23, going to be turning 24. She served her mission in Japan. She speaks 4 languages. She's quite brilliant. She's majoring in international business, but she really has also fallen in love with causes like I have been doing for 27 years. And I have also exposed her to a lot of the different causes that I have been a part of. And her passion is clean water projects. And so she would like to be a part of bringing clean water to communities around the globe. So that's my oldest, Grace. I will address her today. And she passed away when she was 20. She would be turning 22 in May. And so she is our second. Ashton is just graduating. He is our oldest son, third child, and he is into snowboarding and skateboarding, and he has a band and he writes music, and he also loves cultures and people and can make friends with anyone on the planet. Our son Bennett passed away right before his second birthday. Also, May would be his birthday. He would be turning 17. And so it's surreal to me because in my head, he's always this little toddler just toddling around, but he would be turning 17 this month. And I miss him so much. And so much of my grief with him, which is different than Grace, is wondering what he would be versus with Grace. There are very specific things that we miss. And so the grief is similar, but also very different. And then my youngest, Creed, is 12, and he's just going to be graduating from elementary school, and he loves all things sports and anything with a motor, or he's trying to talk us into getting him an electric bike. And Mom's still a little bit apprehensive on that one, seeing how fast they fly down the street. And he is our little caboose, and we fought so hard for him. There's quite a gap between him and his other siblings, and that was not on purpose. It just is the way that it worked out. And we feel really blessed to have the children that we have. And we never imagined that we would have two in the cemetery on top of the difficulty of even getting those ones here. And we are so grateful for the opportunity that we've had to have them in our family for however long they were on this earth, and we're grateful they're ours forever.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for that testimony too. And what day in May are both of their birthdays?
Do you know what is so interesting is that both of their birthdays, Gracelyn's is on the 28th and Bennett's is on the 31st. And more often than not, it falls on Memorial Day weekend. And so most Memorial Day weekends, this year it's a little bit earlier, but most Memorial Day weekends, we're not only celebrating Memorial Day weekend, but Bennett's birthday and Gracelyn's birthday. And so it's pretty surreal. It's a tender time on a lot of levels.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and a tender time and a powerful time of year, as you jump into summer and all of that as well. Would you tell us a little bit more about Grace? We want to get to know her a little bit better.
Well, she's magnificent, which I could say about all my children. But just to speak of Grace is that she came extraordinary, and in her very short life, in 20 years, she had such this condensed experience where she had so many experiences in those 20 years, and the last 6 years of her life, so many acute challenges that many people that live 50 years more than her never see. And while she was extraordinary, even before this life-altering accident happened, what she became during that time is absolutely awe-inspiring. And that was a choice that she made. And in the book that I will be releasing on May 7th, it's actually a compilation of writings from her and from me and her art and her lyrics. She's a singer-songwriter. She would also write poetry and music. And you see her in the midst of these experiences. These are her journal entries and her posts in the midst of these cavernous experiences when she's in the foxholes. And she talks very vulnerably and openly about what she's experiencing, but you see her make choices with what to become, not in spite of it, but because of it. And I think that that is a takeaway that we all can have in life, is that there are things that we choose And there are things that we don't choose. And whether or not we choose it or not, in my circumstance, the most difficult experiences in my life have been things that not only did I not choose, but I didn't even see coming. But what we have 100% control of is what our takeaway will be and who we become because of it. And especially I have found in situations where I've not felt, or no matter what I did, the outcome was different than what I wanted. I have found that I almost hyperfixate on who I am becoming and how this will help me become better. Because if not, it's a whole lot of suffering for nothing.
I'm wondering if you have an example, like maybe one of something she wrote or shares in the book, or maybe a story that you can remember from that would help us see that or get to know her a little bit better. Anything come to, I know we didn't prepare you to share something
Yes.
like this before, but anything come to mind?
Well, I just opened up the book to this page, and this will this kind of takes us towards the end of the journey. Do you want me to start something more towards the beginning?
I think there's a reason you opened up right there. Let's go for it.
Okay. This is a really tender post. Um, when she wrote this on March 31st, 2024, she was on hospice. And so she knew she didn't have very long left. But for the last 5 years before that, she had been unable to eat and keep down nutrition via mouth. And so she'd been fed via feeding tubes and via IVs on TPN, which is the most extreme form of nutrition. And once you get on hospice, the goal is to keep you comfortable, not to prolong life. And so in order for them to keep her comfortable, she had to stop her feeds. It was an either or. They weren't going to continue to nourish her. And so this is a post that she wrote as she took out her feeding tube for the last time. And in here, you actually see a picture of her with her hands and a heart over her stomach. And you see her scarred stomach.
Yeah.
But this is the post that she wrote as she was getting ready to stop nutrition and hydration, knowing what would come soon after. And these are her words. Life is full of bittersweet moments. After being placed on hospice, those moments have become that much more special and that much more brutal, or beautifully brutal. Last night, I removed my feeding tube. The tube that saved me and sustained my life when I couldn't myself. Although I hated that tube at times and often found excuses not to wear the backpack full of feeds, I am grateful for how it served me. When I had to go to TPN, I kept the stoma open, or the opening in her stomach, so that I could use the tube again in hopes that I could get off TPN and return to enteral or oral feeds in the future. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Some say we don't eat or drink in heaven. But even if it's not a need, I will be eating all my favorite foods. And I know God will sit by my side and join me as we enjoy them together. It will be a celebration of all I endured and conquered on this earth, and all of the extreme measures I made to nourish this body. Dear body, thank you. Thank you for enduring painful, hard days and exhausting every option, every test, every treatment, and every tear possible to try to work properly again. Thank you for facing every fear and still moving forward with love and hope. Your fight wasn't in vain. The suffering wasn't wasted. You did amazing. And I know you're tired and ready for this transition. I'm so grateful for your fight and the support you offered me every day, even at times when I didn't love you back. I am so proud of us. We did it. Forevermore, Gracelyn.
Oh my gosh. There's so many thoughts that come to mind. The first thing that I thought was, she is a royal princess. I mean, she knows who she is. And that was beautiful. And then I think I love that she talks about her body as if it's not herself. Like, I am my spirit, not my body, and my body served me, and I'm proud of the way that it served me, but it's not who I am. I'm not defined by the challenges and trials my body has faced. My spirit is unconquerable. I don't know. I want you to keep reading, Amanda. I know that's not what this podcast is for, and you probably don't have the wherewithal to keep reading this whole time, but that was really beautiful. Thank you for choosing that page to go to. You know,
It's so special. And in a minute, you can ask some questions if you want, but I think it would also be helpful. I just have a prelude at the very beginning that kind of tells people a little bit about the story so they know what to expect, because it was really important to me in writing this book that people know that this is not a story of just tragedy and heartache. Because if we just focus on that, we miss so much of the message, don't we? Because we all
Yep.
are so multifaceted, and Grace is so multifaceted, and she is the most hilarious person you will ever meet. She is so funny and so talented and so artistic and so gregarious and so generous and so deep and so adventurous. And the challenge for me in writing this book is that I wanted to show you so many different sides of Grace and not just what happened to her.
yeah.
And so I talk about that a little bit in the prelude, but do you want me to share that in just a little bit?
No, I think that'd be great now, to help our audience understand a little bit more of the backstory, and Grace's story. So yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Prelude, the beginning. Every great composition begins with a prelude, a gentle opening that hints at the themes to come. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It invites. It calls. This book is our prelude to Grace. Before the accident, before the hospital beds, before the silent, yearning prayers of a mother's broken heart, Grace's life already was a song. One composed with joy, layered with depth, and sung with fearless passion. She was an artist, not just in the way she created henna designs or penned lyrics, but in the way she soulfully saw people and made them feel seen. Her life was marked by melody, the kind you remember long after the music stops. She was a songwriter, a vocalist, and a storyteller. Her voice carried something sacred, not just in pitch or tone, but in truth. Grace didn't just sing notes. She sang meaning. She understood that music, like life, is not only about perfection, but expression, even and especially when it's raw. She gave gifts the way a composer writes music, intentional, layered, personal. She was the friend that showed up with crescendo energy in your minor key moments. Loyal, fierce, gentle, true. As her mother, I am writing this book because Grace was and is so much more than what happened to her. Her injury changed the rhythm, yes. The tempo slowed, the tone grew somber, but it did not silence her song. It gave her music more dimension, more depth, shaped by how she chose to grow through it rather than be diminished by it. As her mother, I'm writing this book because Grace was and is so much more than what happened to her. Some might say her story is tragic, but that's not accurate or a correct account. Her story is proof that the brightest lights often shine in the darkest chapters, just as the most moving music often emerges from the most dissonant chords. Grace's life reminds us that there is power in minor keys, that silence, stillness, solitude, and simplicity can be sacred sanctuaries for growth, and that hope often hums underneath our pain like a steady, unrelenting undertone. This book is not just a memoir, it is a composition, a layering of lyrics and love, suffering, and sacredness. You will hear her voice in these pages, not always loud, but always present. You will see her fingerprints on every note. May this journey through Grace's life, through prelude, dissonance, crescendo, and beyond, remind us the music of a soul never truly ends. It simply modulates, shifts keys, and brightly and brilliantly continues in a new and brighter way. Welcome to Walking with Grace. Her song begins here.
That is so good.
Awesome.
Yep.
I was just thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you mentioned that there's music throughout the book as well. And so that's not just the theme, right? But there's actual music involved in the book. Could you maybe share just a little bit more about that?
So we did something that I've never seen done before. And if it's been out there, I haven't seen it. Yeah. So throughout the book, as we did her entries and my entries and wove our storytelling and included her lyrics, we even have her art throughout the pages that she did here. And so you will see her all throughout. But when we refer to her doing an interview or her writing a song or her sharing what she was going through when she experienced something and then she wrote a song inspired by that, we actually have QR codes that you click on, and that when you click on it, it takes you to a video of her doing an interview. It takes her to a specific song that she wrote that we recorded. So you will feel like even if you didn't know her in life or you didn't follow her in life, that you will know her even in her death. And this is a very multi-dimensional experience where you can experience Grace in so many different ways. Also, for those that buy the book, at the end of the book, we have a QR code that you can go to that has some additional information and videos and interviews with Grace. But we also commissioned Masa Fakura, who is over the One Voice Children's Choir, to write scores of her music, the sheet music for her songs, so that you can actually download that sheet music and you can play and sing the songs that she wrote and recorded, so that her songs can carry on and continue to fill their mission. And so this book has so much value, not only with her art, her poetry, her lyrics, her songs, recordings, but also literally will give you the link so that you can download her sheet music. And that was part of what we wanted to include in all of these offerings.
Wow, that's so cool. It's more than just a book, right? But it's an experience that you get to be a part of. And also I like how you said you get to know her. So it's almost a relationship too, right? Like you get to know somebody, a friend, and then feel the power of what they created throughout their life. And so that's powerful. So cool. So thank you for sharing that with us. You've mentioned a couple of times the accident, and I love how you say she's so much more than what happened to her. But I think some are wondering what did happen to her. Would you mind briefly kind of sharing that experience and what led to Grace's passing?
Absolutely. So Gracelyn was a really happy teenager, happy, normal teenager. Her passion was singing, songwriting, acting, and that was what she focused on. She was part of a Shakespeare team at her junior high school that was going to go and compete at the Shakespeare Festival down in Cedar City, Utah. And she was doing a monologue in preparation for the Shakespeare Festival. She was in a classroom in her junior high rehearsing for this Shakespeare competition for junior high and high school students down at in Cedar City. And as she was walking across the room, this is according to the experiences of the other students in the classroom. Grace has no memory of this. There, as she was walking across the room giving her monologue, there was a boom and a flash. And according to the other students in the classroom, it sounded like something exploded. They also mentioned that all the lights in the school flickered. And they looked around the room, just wondering what that was, what happened. And Grace was on the ground, unconscious. So, according to what we learned later, that room, that classroom used to be the computer lab, and it had all those large outlets on the ground where all the computers back in our day, right? Where
Yep.
you would plug in all these computers at once. And when they retrofitted it to be the drama room, they never changed any of the function and they continue to have the electricity go to those outlets. Well, at some time, whether it's during the day, the week, whatever, one of those coverings for that came loose and eventually was taken off. And there were live wires coming up out of that outlet in the room. And when Grace walked across the room, she walked across the wires and she received the brunt of that electric shock. And it affected nearly every system in her body. And over the next 6 years, we fixed what could be fixed until what was left couldn't be fixed anymore. And those injuries were terminal.
So there was, from that time over the next 6 years, while she might have improved, she never had a time where she was feeling 100%. I mean, she was going
Oh,
through significant challenges that entire time.
significant. I mean, even within 6 months of having severe electric shock, she could never keep down food and water after that. So it wasn't minor things. It was
Yeah.
foundational things. But the problem was is that a lot of the things and the systems in her body that were affected, it was progressive. So while we fixed the things that could be fixed, the hole in her spine, the vascular damage, the blood flow to her organs, all these things, while we were able to fix those things and rehabilitate some things, uh, the amount of damage that happened to all of the systems in her body was beyond repair.
Well, and then that just maybe makes it even more amazing what she was able to accomplish over those next 6 years, because she would have been feeling horrible every day. She would have lost a lot of capacity, variety of different types of capacities. Um, Seems like her spirit and her mind, I mean, I don't know if she lost any cognitive functionality, but if she's writing music and doing all of these things, it seems like she was doing pretty good there. But it just seems like she never lost the spirit. That never diminished.
And for her, in some crazy way, it almost seemed that the more that her body suffered and almost shut down, the more her perspective and her sight or her vision expanded.
Hmm.
Because at her age, I mean, keep in mind, this happened from the ages of 14 to 20. Those are years that a lot of teenagers are just very inward focused. They are very, and almost to a developmental level, their brains are just more focused on self-preservation and all those things, right? And because of how intense her suffering was, I mean, it's basically like her entire motherboard for her body was just fried. literally fried, right? Because of how intense her suffering was, one of the ways that she was able to get through the suffering and cope through the suffering is by turning her focus outwards. Because if she focused too much on how she was feeling and what was happening in her body, she couldn't function. And so even when she was in critical health situations, even from her hospital bed, she would find projects to do or ways to serve or write music or make warrior bracelets and have packages delivered to other children in the halls down the down the hall of the hospital, in rooms down the hospital, as a form of coping with her own situation that so many doctors just didn't know what to do. And that is how she found hope. And that is how she continued to fight through the most indescribable pain imaginable.
Amanda, I'm thinking of you as a mom, who loves your child and has hopes and dreams for them, to and their experiences, especially in those like high school years, and then to just how painful that must have been to watch her suffer. And as having some children that are having current health struggles as well, that's hard, to watch your kids suffer and not be able to do all the things that they want to, and all the things that they love. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts out there for, maybe this is a little bit of a selfish question for me, but any thoughts out there for anybody who might be listening who's experienced that or is experiencing that with children who are suffering. Yeah, any thoughts for them?
Well, is it not the question, right?
Mm.
For me personally, it would have been easier for me to go through this myself than to watch a child experience this, because it is indescribable to be doing everything that you can do and still see a child that is living at level 10 pain at all times, and doctors they just don't know what to do. And I will say this, there's so much that our family has learned, that Grace has learned, and that I have learned in this process. And in my belief background, we focus a lot on the resurrection and a lot on the rising again. And during this time of what was about 6 years of Gethsemane for us, that it was indescribable, both on my walls and in my own personal jewelry collection, which is vast, I must say. I ended up going and purchasing some crosses to put in my home because I needed to remember that there was someone in this galaxy that understood what it was like to watch their children suffer at this level. Because even though I had already lost a child, I had already lost a son, I did not have this experience. I did not witness this level of suffering. And up to this point, my idea or my understanding of the attributes of God, of the nature of God, I believed him to be kind and compassionate. I believed him to be gentle and to want to relieve suffering and take difficulty away, even with the narrative of already having lost a child. But it was incredibly stretching, and continues to be, for me to continue to believe and have faith in a father that would allow his children, especially my child, to suffer at such a depth, despite not only my faith, but her faith and fasting and prayers and all these things. And there's still some things I'm working through, and I would be dishonest if I pretended that was anything else. I think this is a journey for all of us, right? This is not a tidy bow. This is something that grief is not linear, it's cyclical. And we hit different things at different times, and some of those things we can see coming and sometimes we can't, right? And I will say that I feel like my compassion and my empathy, and ironically, my grace that I offer to others has grown immensely, because I have realized so many people would just see me from the outside and be like, "Hey, Amanda, like, how's Grace doing?" Or "How are things going?" Or I'd be driving to and from appointments where we would be receiving devastating news. And people would just see me behind a car, or just see me going to get groceries because we have no food in the fridge, or see me showing up to church, not knowing that I could barely breathe. And I think that I realized for myself, not only do I have a greater and deeper understanding for what our heavenly parents do and what they were willing to do, but I also believe that there are more people that are the walking wounded, just like I have been, out and about, seemingly doing everyday normal things, that are just trying to focus on expanding their lungs. And so when someone cuts me off, or when someone is kind of like there but not there, or responds really kind of crisply to me, or when I would get a doctor that didn't seem to respond with very much compassion or bedside manner, often I would think, what did they experience right before they entered this room? What other news did they have to deliver to someone else? Or maybe how are they needing to disengage from this conversation in order to have the conversation, knowing what that means? And because of what I've experienced, I feel like my understanding of suffering, not only of my own, let alone that of my daughter, but my ability and my capacity to have more empathy and love and compassion for others has grown indescribably. And perhaps that is the tuition that we pay for such an education.
Yeah, I think that makes so much sense, because especially it feels like if you're a person who does turn outward, if you can turn outward, you become more like the Savior. You see why he would weep with other people, why he was pained at the pain of other people. And I think you're describing exactly that experience that's happening to you, as we speak. I'm wondering, Amanda, if you could, knowing that your two children who passed in such unique, different ways, so different from each other.
Mhm.
Could you maybe talk a little bit about how you were able to find some hope in each one of those situations? Like, what were you able to grasp onto or experience that allowed you to expand your lungs and breathe a little bit?
Mhm. And that's and something that I think is really important to mention here. If I would have had this conversation with you 2 years ago, this conversation would be very different, because Bennett now has been in heaven for 15 years, right? So,
Yeah.
hindsight, and even quite frankly, some distance between that freshness, helps us to see things a little differently, right?
Mm.
So the things that I'm talking to you about right now, I am still in very fresh and profound grief. I am not even 2 years out. I'm a year and a half out. And so the things that I'm talking about specifically with Gracelyn's death, as I've mentioned, it's in my windshield, not just in my rear view mirror. Maybe Bennett's loss is more rear view mirror because it's like 15 years. Grace, I still have her clothes and bins in her closet and don't know what to do with them. and I can't part with them, but I'm not ready to go through them. And so I don't want to make this sound like I have this all figured out and this is tidy. And I'm just like, well, let me tell you all the takeaways for grief and profound grief. But what I will say is this: in both circumstances, either at the moment of discovery from Bennett, when I found him lifeless in his crib right before his second birthday, or with Grace, where she had a life-altering injury, and we went all over the world to try and address everything that happened in her body after severe electric shock. In one instance, by the time I knew something was wrong, it was too late. But as I was trying to resuscitate him and trying to do everything that I could to bring life into him, even though he was very cold, I don't know if you have a more honest, profound, and raw prayer when you as a parent are pleading for the life of a child, and especially when they're lifeless right in front of you. I don't know how much more real prayers get than that. I also had times that by at least thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, approaching on millions of prayers that we had for Grace, praying for direction all along the way. And she also had multiple close calls where we almost lost her multiple times. And so I've lost track of the ambulance rides, of the life flights, of the code blues, of the resuscitations. So both roads were incredibly intense. But with Grace, the level of suffering that I experienced was, I've never experienced human suffering at that level. Before this experience, I was probably, even though I was rooted in my belief and in my faith, I was probably a little bit more, if I'm quite honest, and this perspective comes more in hindsight, right? But I was probably more transactional in my faith, where I was trying to get all those points that I could get, all those like righteousness points, all those, I mean, not that I was keeping track, but in my life, I was trying to do everything good that I could do, hoping that I would ensure these blessings and ensure these promises so that if ever something happened, I could just call in those chips. I could call in those chips and we could call down the powers of heaven with me and our circle of amazing family and friends. And surely our prayers would be answered. Surely our prayers would be answered. So it was quite an experience to have not only the experience of trying to resuscitate a son, but then having a daughter have a life-altering injury at her school, both places for my children where they should have been 100% safe. My son in his bed, my daughter in a classroom. Even looking back, saying, what would I do different? What, do you just never put a child to bed? Do you just never send a child to school? Even in hindsight, I don't know how those could have been avoided, right?
Yeah.
And it's quite an experience to look back and say, my hope used to be tied to outcomes. My hope was tied to God saving me or removing suffering from me. And then when you have not only one experience, but multiple experiences where the most profound and passionate and authentic and vulnerable prayers of your life have seemingly, at least from the outside, fallen on deaf ears, that heaven seems so quiet. For me, what I have had to learn is that hope is not based on an outcome. Hope is based on a relationship. And for me, my hope now and the faith that I am building, because even the experience I had with Bennett and my perspective after that has to be even up-leveled after my experience with Grace. Not even that experience is enough to help me process everything I experienced with Grace. So as I'm up-leveling and in the process of doing that, I am basing my hope in Jesus Christ in my relationship with him and in my trust that he will do what he said that he would do. Maybe not even in my lifetime, but in the eternal scheme. And for me, that is an entirely different level of faith.
Yeah, just wanted to say thank you for that. I feel like that's such a profound way to describe the idea of hope, and to compare that to the suffering and the hard things that we go through and the questions that we ask when we go through those hard things. Like, why? That's just a simple question that sometimes it seems like a mountain, right? That we're climbing to get over, to try to understand that why, and the answer to that. But like you said, if our hope isn't based in the outcomes, then even that most difficult of questions, right? That there can still be hope throughout, even if we haven't found the answer to that question yet. And so thank you. I feel like that's so helpful.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, our God is a protector, he's a deliverer, he's a healer, but we don't always get to know when those things happen. And it's like I have faith in his ability to do those things and also his wisdom to know when to do those things, or it's just that's who we need to believe in. It is so hard when the miracle doesn't happen. It is so devastating. But it doesn't mean God isn't doing his part. He will make all things right in the end. We know how the end goes. It's just so hard to wait to get there. But we have to have faith to get there, right? I mean, we have to believe in him, and that is a challenge to learn. I think we all go through some form of that. And I get to your point, Amanda, I'm still trying to cash in chips these days, because that's just how we're kind of used to working. But it does not seem to be the way that true faith is. That does not seem to be the definition of true faith.
And the challenge I have found is that with Ben, I mean, I didn't, by the time we knew something was wrong, he was gone. But my friends, I truly believed that after all we could do with Grace, she might not get back to 100%. And maybe she couldn't even have children, or maybe she couldn't have like all these things. But we could restore some level or quality of life so that she could lead a life of contribution and joy and meaning. I honestly, until the last year of her life, didn't even see death as an option on the table. Because why? I believed that God could heal her. And for me, after her death, that is something that shook me so much, is that it wasn't that I didn't have faith that she could be healed. It's that I had so much faith that she would be, because surely God would not ask me to do this twice. Surely. And that has been a healing process with my relationship with the divine. And I don't know who needs to hear this on the program today, because you don't have to have lost a child to experience this. But if you are in a place where your experiences and your heartache, where sometimes it feels more painful to believe that there is a heavenly Father out there that allowed this to happen, it is more painful to believe that than maybe just to say, hey, I'm out. I'm out. Because it is easier to believe that maybe there's not a God, or that maybe he's not aware of me, than to believe that he is, and he allowed that, and he saw that, and he didn't stop it from happening. But I want to say, in my own healing and where I'm at right now and where I've come in the last, we're not even 2 years out, God is big enough to take us wherever we're at. And my screaming and my yelling and my temper tantrums and my pleading, and man, I have driven up into canyons, and I have screamed and yelled, and I've just said some things that most people would feel not appropriate to say to the divine. But can I tell you what? When my dad knew that Grace was heading towards hospice and he walked through the whole death of my son with me, and he said to me, he said, Amanda, I'm really concerned that you're going to be really angry at God. And I said, oh, you bet. Game on. I'm there. And I said, Dad, be really concerned when I don't care. When I become so apathetic, or when I walk away and I'm not even willing to engage in the wrestle, that's when you should be concerned. But as long as I'm willing to fight it out and have the conversations and be real and tell him where I'm at and share where I'm at, but also when I see tender mercies, acknowledge that that's what he's sending. And just like we do in any relationship, marital relationship, parent relationship, extended family relationships, we don't have these kind of conversations with people we don't care about. We only take the time and energy to have these conversations with people and relationships that matter. And I have told all my children, God can take whatever you are feeling after your loss of 2 siblings. God can take you wherever you are at. You are not going to throw him anything he hasn't seen before. You're not going to, whoa, didn't see that one coming. But when we are willing to engage authentically and vulnerably wherever we're at, I have found that it is absolutely life-changing the way that our Heavenly Father can show up and let us know he is aware, and he too is weeping with us.
Oh, that's so profound. And I think there are people who will listen to this who will have, or maybe are feeling that, is how I'm feeling towards God okay? And I like to remind my students that all those questions, and I love how you even brought up anger, like that is an act of faith. If you're mad at God, you believe there's a God, and so even that, right? And I was thinking about Joseph Smith in Liberty Jail. Like, I think he was frustrated with his experience, but he's still asking, "Oh God, where art thou?" He's still wondering, where are you? Because I know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
You are there, but like, I know you're out there, but where are you in this moment? And sometimes it's in those moments where we're asking, where were you? Why aren't you here? Why aren't you saving me? Why aren't you saving my friends and my family? It's in those moments where he can teach us the most.
But even the most complicated feelings in the path of grief and life just in general, right? They're all based from love. And God is love. And so whenever we are feeling angry or upset or frustrated or just enraged or heartbroken, or we only feel that way with things that we've cared about. It all comes from love. And so in our family, there are no off limits emotions, but we do get to decide what to do with those feelings. So no feelings are wrong, but we can also choose how to process them and what to do with them. And so that's what we focus with in our family. And our heavenly parents gave us those feelings for a reason. That is a healthy part of growth and grief and learning and becoming. And if we shame ourselves when feeling those feelings, from my own experience, people turn to other means to numb. Because what's the opposite of addiction? Connection, right? And when we turn off those feelings or put shame around them or say that they're wrong, then people end up just shutting down altogether. And in order to cope with that, they end up numbing in different ways. And that's when we start to get to really, really complicated parts of the way that people deal with grief, loss, and trauma.
Well, Amanda, you have shared so much goodness. You have shared your faith, your testimony, your love for Grace and for Bennett and for all of your family. You've shared your love for the Savior. You've shared your love for the grief community. You can clearly tell you're a person with big love to share with individuals. And we're so thankful that you would be willing to jump on our podcast and share your story and Gracelyn's story. And as we navigate towards the end, we always like to ask our guests the same final question. And so we would ask you, Amanda, considering your experience with grief, what do you now believe about Jesus Christ?
I believe that there is a time that we will have a resurrection and I will get to hold my children in my arms again, and that my arms will be able to fill their bodies next to me, and they will not have the injuries or the things that caused their death. That will not be an issue. But what I'm learning right now is that for me, though, it's not a stretch to believe in a physical resurrection. What I am coming to learn right now firsthand is how I can rely on the power of the atonement to give me a daily resurrection every day so that I can learn to live after death and not survive, not exist, but that I can literally have, through the power of the atonement, God breathe life into me, and that I can take all these experiences and use them not only for my good, but for the good of those around me and for the world. And perhaps one of my greatest impacts and legacies won't be in spite of what I've been through, but maybe even because of it. And so right now, I'm learning the power of a daily resurrection and how to find meaning in the mess, and how that oftentimes can also be my medicine.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda. I kind of want to just sit and have you read the rest of the book to us right now, because that was just so powerful and so wonderful. But I guess we'll have to tell our audience, if you want more, you gotta go buy Walking with Grace, because it truly sounds like so incredible, and we've learned so much from you. And just one last thought is, I think it's maybe a terrible irony that it was electricity that caused the terrible things that happened to Gracelyn, but also she was light in so many ways, and all the way to the end, and even continues. That light hasn't died, and your light. And thank you, Amanda, for being that light to many people who are going through a lot of darkness. And your message today and your book is going to bring light. And so thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their story of hope. If you know someone who might be blessed by hearing this message, please share it with them. We would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review, and comment on our podcast so others can find it. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, as well as join our Grief and Beliefs Facebook group. Thank you to our sponsor, High Five Live Tours, where fun and joy meet on inspiring travel experiences. Special thanks to our producer, Misty Lynn Howard. Check out her history podcast called Faith Ignited. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.